HeLa cells. This one is, in my opinion, one of the most insane anomalies ever. In 1951, a woman named Henrietta Lacks was being treated for cancer, and during her treatment, doctors took a small sample of her cells without telling her or her family. Usually, when human cells are taken out of the body and put into a lab dish, they die after a few days because they can only divide a certain number of times before they wear out. This is called the Hayflick limit. However, Henrietta's cells did something that had never been seen before in history. Instead of dying, they just kept growing and making copies of themselves over and over again at a very high speed. Scientists call these cells immortal because they do not have a natural end to their life cycle as long as they are given food and kept in the right environment. These cells have now traveled all over the world and even into space. There are trillions of Henrietta's cells alive in laboratories today, which means there is much more of her physical body alive now than there ever was when she was a living person. Even though her cells have helped scientists create vaccines and study how diseases work, we still do not fully understand the exact biological glitch that allowed her specific cells to do all of this. These cells are so aggressive and resilient that they can take over completely different cell cultures. Some scientists have even suggested that these cells have changed so much over the decades that they are no longer human at all, but have become a completely new species that lives in a glass bottle. The proposed name for this species was Helicyton gartleri. However, it wasn't recognized by the scientific community as a distinct taxon from ours. Nowadays, we understand how these cells keep multiplying instead of dying, but we still don't know how and why all of this happened. Millions of women have developed the same cancer as Henrietta, but their cells didn't do all of this. Keep in mind that normal human cells have 46 chromosomes, and if a human cell gets even one extra chromosome, it usually causes severe developmental issues, like Down syndrome, or triggers the cell's internal self-destruct button. Henrietta cells have anywhere from 76 to 80 massively scrambled, shattered, and glued back together chromosomes. A cell with that much genetic damage should not be able to function, yet HeLa cells somehow orchestrate this chaotic mess perfectly and keep reproducing. Planet 9. For a long time, we thought we knew all the major planets that circle our sun, but astronomers noticed that small, icy objects way past Pluto were moving in a very strange way. Instead of moving in random directions, these distant rocks are all being pulled into a similar tilted path, as if a giant invisible hand is dragging them along. After doing the math, scientists realized that the only thing strong enough to pull these objects this way would be a planet about 10 times the size of Earth. This possible planet is so far away that it would take thousands of years just to go around the sun once, which is why it is so hard to find. It sits in a region of space that is completely frozen and pitch black, far beyond the light of the sun. What makes this truly unsettling is that we can see the effect this object has on everything around it, but we cannot actually see the object itself. Some scientists have even suggested that it might not be a planet at all, but could be a tiny 2 to 4 inches ancient black hole that is wandering through our solar system. We are currently searching the sky with the most powerful telescopes we have, but we don't know yet what this thing is. A massive new telescope called the Vera C. Rubin Observatory is about to come online in Chile. This telescope will photograph the entire visible night sky every few days with a 3,200 megapixel camera. If Planet 9 is out there, the Rubin Observatory will likely spot it within the next few years. While astronomers need massive billion-dollar observatories to find exactly what they're looking for, finding the perfect AI tool for your own problems is a whole lot easier now thanks to today's sponsor, Abacus AI. Instead of having to buy dozens of different expensive subscriptions, Abacus AI puts all the top LLMs in one single place. They have ChatGPT 5.4, Gemini 3.1 Pro, Claude Opus 4.6, Grok 4.1, DeepSeek, and more, in one single place. Paying for all these top-tier AI tools separately would cost a fortune, but Abacus AI bundles all of them for just $10 a month. Most of the time, though, it's hard to choose which LLM is best for your task, and that's where their Root LLM feature shines. It automatically picks the absolute best model for your specific prompt, so you always get the best answer. It doesn't just stop at text prompts, though. Abacus AI gives you the best AI image generators like Nano Banana Pro and Flux, alongside top-notch video generation like Kling 3.0. You can even use it to automatically create deeply researched professional PowerPoint presentations in seconds. There's also the Abacus AI Deep Agent. This is a massively powerful general agent that practically acts as your personal software developer, helping you build full websites, mobile apps, and even your own custom AI agents. You can get all of this for just $10 a month by visiting chatllm.abacus.ai/pxl, or just click the link in the description or the pinned comment below. Thanks again to Abacus AI for sponsoring today's video. The Hypersmart Mold. In biology, the requirement for memory, learning, and problem-solving is a nervous system. You need neurons to think. However, Physarum polycephalum, a bright yellow, single-celled slime mold that lives on rotting logs in the forest, is completely different, using simple biological and chemico-physical processes instead. While being just one giant cell, it can solve incredibly complex problems. If scientists place it at the start of a maze and put its favorite food, which is usually a piece of an oat, at the end, the slime mold will explore the paths and figure out the shortest possible route to the prize. It even has a clever way of remembering where it has already been by leaving behind a trail of clear slime, acting like an external memory, so it does not waste time checking the same dead end twice. The most famous and unsettling experiment happened when researchers placed oats on a map to represent the cities around Tokyo and let the slime mold grow over them. In just a few days, the brainless blob created a web of tubes to connect all the food that was almost exactly the same as the real Tokyo train system, a network that took human engineers decades to design. If maze solving wasn't enough, scientists discovered that the slime mold can actually anticipate future events. In 2008, researchers put a slime mold in a perfect environment, but blasted it with cold, dry air, which it hates, for exactly 10 minutes every hour. Every time the cold air hit, the slime mold would slow down its movements to conserve energy. After doing this a few times, the researchers stopped blasting the cold air. However, exactly 1 hour later, the slime mold slowed down and braced itself anyway. It had learned the pattern and anticipated the punishment, despite having zero neurons to store a memory. The slime mold has birthed an entirely new, highly controversial field of science called basal cognition, and scientists are currently trying to use the slime mold to build biocomputers to solve complex math problems. Havana syndrome. Havana syndrome is a frightening medical mystery that emerged in 2016 when U.S. diplomats and CIA officers at the embassy in Cuba began experiencing unexplained symptoms. These people reported hearing strange noises that sounded like grinding metal, piercing whistles, or buzzing insects coming from a specific direction. Even more disturbing was that some people felt weird vibrations or a sensation of pressure in their heads, as if they were standing in an invisible beam of energy. After these strange experiences, the victims suffered from painful headaches, dizziness, and memory loss. The most chilling part of this anomaly is that it has since happened to hundreds of officials all over the world, from Europe to Asia, and yet we still do not know what is causing it. Some believe that a hidden weapon using invisible waves or microwaves is being used to target people through walls, while others think it might be a type of high-tech spying equipment that is accidentally hurting the human brain. Despite years of investigation by the most powerful intelligence agencies and doctors on the planet, there is no solid proof of a device or a person responsible for these attacks. This leaves us with the terrifying possibility that there is a technology out there that can break the human mind from a distance without leaving a single trace behind. Just recently, in 2023, a multi-agency U.S. intelligence review concluded that it is very unlikely that a foreign adversary used a weapon or device to cause the widespread cases. The leading theory nowadays is that it's caused by other unidentified factors, such as stress, pre-existing medical conditions, and environmental factors. Voodoo death. Can a perfectly healthy human being die simply because they believe they are going to? In medical science, the placebo effect, getting better because you believe you will, is well documented. But its other side, the nocebo effect, takes a terrifying turn in a documented anomaly known as psychogenic death, or voodoo death. It's a phenomenon where a person gives up on living and simply passes away, despite having no physical illness or injury that should cause them to die. It is sometimes called give-up-itis because it usually happens after a person goes through a massive psychological trauma that makes them feel like they have absolutely no control over their life or their future, such as getting a misdiagnosis for a deadly disease. Researchers believe this might be linked to a specific part of the brain called the anterior cingulate circuit, which is the area responsible for keeping us motivated and helping us reach goals. When a situation feels completely hopeless, this circuit might break down, convincing the rest of the nervous system that there is no point in continuing to spend energy on staying alive. The leading biological theory as of now is that the situation the person is in, if he's vulnerable enough at the time it happens, can cause a failure of balance between the sympathetic system and the parasympathetic system. If the sympathetic system becomes overactive, it can cause massive release of stress hormones, which can lead to circulatory problems, such as Takotsubo cardiomyopathy, also known as broken heart syndrome, where acute stress temporarily weakens the heart. On the other hand, if the parasympathetic system is the one becoming overactive, it can lead to a sudden drop in heart rate, blood pressure, and in extreme cases, cardiac arrest. Blind sight. Most people would assume that if the part of the brain that processes vision is damaged, they would be blind. However, there's an unsettling phenomenon called blind sight. These individuals are indeed technically blind and will tell you that they cannot see anything at all, yet their bodies react to the world as if they have perfect vision. If you throw a ball at a person with blind sight, they might flinch or raise a hand to protect themselves, even though they don't see anything. If you ask them to walk down a hallway filled with obstacles like chairs or boxes, they will move around every single object without tripping. But if you ask them why they turned or stepped aside, they will say they have no idea and were just guessing. This anomaly suggests that our eyes send information to more than one part of the brain. While the part that creates the pictures in our minds is broken, another older and more primitive part of the brain is still receiving the data and controlling the body's movements. It creates a strange split where the conscious mind is completely blind, but the physical body is watching and reacting to things that the person does not know exist. It is like having a ghost in your own head that is looking out of your eyes and moving your limbs while you are left sitting in the dark, unaware of what is actually happening around you. What we know about this phenomenon is that it occurs because about 10% of the optic nerve fibers completely bypass the primary visual cortex area. Instead, they dive deep into a much older, more primitive part of the brain called the superior colliculus. This structure evolved millions of years ago, long before conscious, high-definition vision did. It acts as a rapid response system. It doesn't paint a picture, it just calculates trajectory, motion, and threats, and then sends commands straight to your motor cortex to move your body. Human chimera. A woman named Lydia Fairchild applied for government assistance to help raise her children. The government required a standard DNA test to prove she was their biological mother, but the results came back with an impossible answer. The test stated that Lydia was not related to her own kids at all. The state quickly accused her of kidnapping and welfare fraud. The situation was so unbelievable that a judge ordered a court official to stand in the delivery room when she gave birth to her third child, yet the blood tests for that new baby still did not match Lydia. It took a team of specialized doctors to finally figure out the terrifying truth. Lydia was basically a human chimera, which means that when she was just a microscopic cluster of cells inside her own mother's womb, she actually absorbed her twin sister. Because of this rare event, Lydia's body was built out of two completely different genetic blueprints. Her skin and blood had one set of DNA, but her internal organs, including the reproductive organs that created her children, had the DNA of the ghost twin she absorbed before she was even born. Science only knows how twins fuse together, but they still cannot fully explain why some twins safely develop side by side while others silently fuse together into a single living organism. Spontaneous prion misfolding. In biology, viruses and bacteria are the usual enemies. However, there's another potential threat, prions. They contain no genetic material at all, and they are just regular, naturally occurring proteins inside your brain. In order to do their jobs correctly, these proteins have to be folded into very specific and precise shapes. However, sometimes a healthy protein simply folds itself into the wrong shape completely out of nowhere. This deformed protein is called a prion, and it is deeply disturbing because it can act like a microscopic zombie. When this newly formed prion bumps into other perfectly healthy proteins, it somehow forces them to change their shape and become deformed prions as well. This creates a slow chain reaction that sweeps through the brain, spreading like a deadly infection without using any viruses or bacteria. Because they are not alive in the traditional sense, and they don't have DNA, you cannot kill them with normal medicines. If you wanted to boil them, you'd need a higher than usual temperature, and if you wanted to destroy them with radiation, you'd need a much higher dose than bacteria or viruses. As the chain reaction continues, these misfolded proteins clump together and physically destroy the surrounding tissue, leaving microscopic holes behind until the brain actually starts to resemble a sponge. Once a prion disease begins, it is untreatable and always fatal. The axis of evil. When scientists were looking at the cosmic microwave background, which is basically the heat leftover from the Big Bang that happened billions of years ago, they noticed something incredibly unique. When we look at this light across the entire sky, we expect it to be messy and random, because the universe is supposed to be the same in every direction. However, when researchers mapped this light, they discovered that the hot and cold spots are not random at all. Instead, they seem to be lined up along a giant invisible line that stretches across the vastness of space. What makes this truly disturbing is that this line appears to be pointed directly toward the path that Earth and the rest of our solar system take as we move through the galaxy. This discovery is so upsetting to astronomers that they named it the axis of evil, because it threatens our current understanding of the universe. Scientists have tried to prove it was just a mistake caused by their telescopes or by dust in our own galaxy, but every time they take a better picture, the line is still there. One theory says that the discrepancy arises from the way it was calculated, since we are looking at the universe through the dirty window of our own Milky Way. Our Our galaxy is filled with dust, gas, and magnetic fields, so to see the pure CMB, scientists have to use intense mathematical masking to subtract the Milky Way from the image. Another theory is the statistical fluke one, which says that if you look at a massive, incredibly complex data set long enough, you will eventually find a pattern that looks impossible but is actually just a random coincidence. Still, we don't have any universally accepted explanation yet. If you want to discuss this video or suggest an idea for the next one, join my Discord, link in the description.